Hi, Junior.
Hi, Addie.
Welcome to the Where the Climate Things Are podcast.
Super
Laughing
excited to be
already.
here. Yeah, I don't. Am I supposed to laugh? I don't want it. I want it to be
I
like what you
I
want it to be.
laugh. I laugh all the time. I kind of can't not laugh. Like it's like I'm always laughing.
Okay,
So you're good. You're good. That's the vibe we want. Wow. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining
of
amidst
course.
such a busy time for both of us. I know for you as well, especially.
Yeah,
Um, I was wondering to start us out if you could introduce yourself to everyone that's listening, and you can take that however you want to.
awesome. Thanks so much, Addie. Super excited to be here. My name's Junior Rodriguez. I'm a mestizo filmmaker, adventure photographer. That's fine. How does that sound?
That's awesome. And I mean, I think that also, it's really hard to do an introduction. Faith and I talk a lot about this on the trail ahead because how do you summarize your identity or who you are? You know, you
Hmm.
can say like, "Hey, my name is this." We were just talking about introductions specifically in like the context of the Maori communities I was visiting, and they do introductions in a different way where you actually name the land, like the structure or natural formation that you're from. So your mountain, the mountain that you are familiar with or that you grew up near, and then the body of water, and then and I think I think introductions are so fascinating in that way. So you're
Yeah.
good. This is
I think
great. We
I think
want to
that's
just
why I
know what you want
started
to say.
stumbling because I was like doing the intro, but I was like, but what would I have said if I was like, like the Maori does it? It's like, oh, I'm from Houston, Texas, a body of water is the Gulf of Mexico. I'm still saying the Gulf of Mexico.
We are, yep,
And if we
definitely.
go back some, like where my parents are from, we're talking about like dry desert, silver mines, and like
Hmm.
copper mountains, and like a lot of sun. So if that gives like
Yeah.
any indication of my kind of background, maybe that's why I'm
Yeah.
so harsh sometimes. People say I'm harsh.
That's
Who
so.
knows?
People say that to you?
Sometimes.
Huh. Okay. I mean,
I
I
think I'm just
I
honest, based on my metal horse horoscope, what Chinese new, because that just happened, it's like,
right. Yeah.
mhm.
Are you what year? I don't know enough about this to even ask this question, but do you know what year
I'll just
you
say
are?
I'm a metal horse. If people want to
A
look, I
metal
don't want to
horse.
date myself.
I like that. And that is interesting to think about too, how like those kinds of things shape personality elements. Like
Hmm.
what you said about where your family is from and
Yeah,
like those elements of nature. It's really
just live
interesting.
realization here on your podcast.
This is what we're all about. This,
I'm
you
not
heard it
harsh.
here
I want to
first.
step back from that. I'm not harsh. I'm not harsh. I'm a fun guy. It's fun. Everything's great. We're gonna solve climate change. Here we go, Addie. Let's do it.
Junior, I love all these different introduction versions because yes, we want it all. And you heard it here first. We're going to solve climate change on this podcast, which honestly, I believe. Like I feel I was very inspired by meeting you. I'll just say it here live again. We just met recently at the POW Creative Alliance Summit. I don't know if it was a summit, but it was a gathering. Let's say it was a gathering. I don't even
Just
know what
because
to
it
call
was
it.
small, it doesn't mean it's not a summit. But you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, I'd never been to one of those before. Which actually, had you been to one of
I
those
have been
gatherings?
to the other one. They
Okay,
call it the Leadership Summit,
there we go. Yep. Okay, a very
which is
fancy
I
name.
just thought it was the POW party, but I
Yeah,
guess
it's what
this.
it sounds like. I heard the food was amazing. The place y'all were saying was really fun. So yeah, that's what I gathered from it too. But no, I mean, I think meeting you alongside learning more about your passion for coffee, which I will definitely ask you about. That was our introductory conversation. I was just so excited to dive deeper with you and like pick your brain more about this space. And I do think for me, meeting folks like yourself and like others that were at that summit, that gathering, felt hopeful. It felt like we're gonna be okay. There's a lot going on right now, but I do think to your point or to your comment, I do think we can quote unquote solve, some of what we're up against right now with climate. So, anyways, joking or not, I really do believe that. And I'm
Yeah,
really excited to
yeah.
be chatting more with you. This is honestly, again, like kind of a selfish time to just be like, oh, I wanted to hang out with Junior more. Let's just record this conversation.
I was just in Portland, and I was like, God, I wish Addie hadn't
Yeah.
moved because I would have called her. We're like, it was my best friend's birthday, and I was like, yeah, Addie would have come and like hung out on a Tuesday,
Totally.
closed down this
Totally.
bar for
Yes.
somebody's birthday.
Like always. Yes. That's great. Next time we'll make it
Next time,
happen.
yeah.
Um, okay, so in the vein of climate work and realizations and hopefulness or not, I was curious to ask you something I ask everyone that comes on is what was your aha or awakening moment around climate and environment?
Yeah, I think it was, I had just missed the bus, and I was going to like a charter school. It was a middle school, high school combo. And I remember crying when I got in because like my sister was in it and like she just worked. She was just always studying. She didn't really have like a lot like a life, you know? And it was
Yeah.
like the school was like you're getting into college or you're gonna be another statistic because like our zip code was one that was like, a lot of a lot of problems, a lot of societal problems and the people that my friends, the other people at the school were from like similar zip codes that had issues, we'll call them. But I missed the bus, right? And I had already like begged my parents for, like a bike for Christmas. So I had a bike. And the school was so like rigid that I did not want to miss a single class because you just fall behind and then
Yeah.
you're effed. And so I had to ride my bike across Houston. I lived on the north side. The school was on the south side by Hobby Airport. And I don't, Houston is really big. If you watch Mo, like they don't really do a lot of different, they're just in so many places around Houston and you rarely see the same place twice. It's massive. You can drive
Hmm.
across and it'll take you like 4 hours, like on a highway, something like that. It's like, it's pretty big. And so I had to ride my bike, but the route obviously I had to take was through more my bad neighborhood, other bad neighborhoods, because I was using, back in the day, like MapQuest. And I was like, oh, this seems like the
Oh,
straightest line.
MapQuest.
Like, if
Yes.
I get on this road, and it was Galveston Boulevard or something like that. And it was like, once I make it, then it's just a straight shot, like down to the school. Anyways, so I started seeing a lot of, the problems happening in these bad zip codes. But the real one was once you got to the east side of Houston, that's where all of the refineries are. So I had to ride my bike through just like refinery after refinery after
Whoa.
refinery, and it was a pretty big street. Like it's like the one below like a freeway, so I think it's like a highway, but it's still kind of like in the 40, 50 miles per hour, and just like yeah, the roads were not for biking. There was crap
No, that's like a
everywhere.
highway.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was the straightest way to get to the school, so I wouldn't
And
miss
MapQuest took
school.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
MapQuest took me so that I wouldn't be late for English class, so I wouldn't get behind because Miss Robinson
Right.
was really intense and like yeah, and I didn't want to be a statistic, and I little did I know
Wow.
I was going to be potentially another statistic in Houston. There's not really great bike infrastructure, and there's like really bad bicycling accidents, which is part of the reason why like Portland was so appealing at the time because of their bike infrastructure. And I just like wanted to ride my bike and like not have like a bottle thrown at me or like almost get whizzed
Yeah.
by like a car that and they're late for work. I don't know, but like I'm late for school.
You're late for school. I was gonna say.
um, and I passed by like yeah, so like all of these places that I was passing by, um, the kids that lived there, those were my friends too. Like, Denver Harbor area, the east side of Houston. We're just the you would hear about your friends like grandparents or parents like, oh, they're like really sick, they have like this weird cough, like they're just always sick. And you think to yourself, it's like, oh, because they probably eat like a bunch of tamales, like we eat a bunch of tamales, or like we eat really bad, like thinking about sort of gaslighting ourselves, like, oh, it's because like Mexicans, like, we don't really drink water, we drink Coke.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And like, well, now we don't drink Coke because of, what they did, but, and now we're a Pepsi crew. But, like drinking a lot of soda or pop. I don't know what region your
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
your listeners are, but if I said Coke, like that's like a Texas Southern range kind of thing. But yeah, we were gaslighting ourselves into like maybe it's because they eat bad. Um, but once we grew up a little and we were like, oh yeah, it's because a lot of our friends live next to these refineries, and you're just getting all of these fumes that you don't really know are in the air,
Yeah.
right? You're just playing outside. You're just living where you
Yeah.
live.
Living.
And I think also that same kind of time was because I had just gotten the bike, and I was now a biker because I had torn an Achilles during cross country practice. So I had to
Oh,
do biking for rehab.
yeah.
I got into the like triathlon biking thing, and like our coach was trying to make a team where we would practice would be on the west side of Houston at like this really nice park. And like biking around there is just like, what the fuck, like what is this, like why is it so nice here, like
Yeah.
why are cars stopping for me, like where are the loose dogs, like there's no pit bull, like dogs are on leashes, this doesn't make any sense. And just kind of seeing those quick dichotomies just like in the place that I lived, was kind of like that aha, like climate, environmental justice, it affects people in different ways. And like the west side, they're living at large, it's literally green on the ground, and on the east side it's just cement everywhere. And those were kind of like those aha moments pretty young, and it all came
Yeah.
from trying to do good in school.
I was gonna say, wait, I have to ask, did you make it to homeroom that day?
I
Or like
missed
for your
I missed
class?
English class. Yeah. And I remember Miss somebody was like, "Yo, Miss Robinson's looking for you." And I was like, "Fuck." And I had to go talk to Miss Robinson. It's like, "Yo, like I missed the bus, but like I was like sweating, and like we had to wear like so like I'm drenched in this uniform." And it's like, even though I had already changed, right? And like I'm still sweating. It's like, yeah, like I was, I missed the bus, but I tried to make it. So, like, can I get the homework? Like, I'll ask somebody for what happened in class. And I think I can't remember what happened after that, because then I just remember people being like, "Did you really ride your fucking bike like from your house? What's wrong with you?"
I think it's impressive. And you also clearly did. It wasn't like you're making anything up because you were sweating so badly.
Oh
Like,
yeah, and I
there was
and
sort
I
of the
had my
proof.
bike. And I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
to take
Okay.
my bike kind of like around because there was nowhere to lock it, because
Oh my gosh. So you're wheeling it into class?
yeah, I'm kind of like wheeling it. And I think my science teacher was like, "Stop wheeling your bike, like just put it in the back of my classroom, like we all heard that you like rode your bike
We
here, like
all know.
yeah, you're making a scene." And it's like, and y'all made it seem like creating such an environment where I had to ride
Yeah,
my bike here.
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean,
Well, that's a really I can like see that story so clearly. I appreciate you sharing all of that because that is kind of where I go when I think about aha moments, right? Like there is like
mm,
for some people there's like a switch flips or like a I can remember the specific moment and like that's kind of a yeah, I mean, what a story. I'm glad you at least made it to school that day safely.
yeah.
Let's start there. We'll go there.
I'm like looking at the map right now, and like I
Yeah.
chose it pretty well. It's like one left and then
Really?
just like bang, like 20
Yeah.
some miles.
Just bang right on the highway. Wait, how
Yeah.
long was it? That's
It was
far.
it was like 20, yeah, it was across town.
Oh yeah, you did say Houston was like 4 hours to drive across, so I now
Yeah,
I understand. Wow. Wow. Okay.
so that was my aha moment.
Well, that thank you for that. That's very
If we can
illuminating.
point to one,
Well, if we had point to one, yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
throughout, everybody lives and like you just start stacking some of these on top of each other, um, and they start
Yeah.
making more sense.
Absolutely. Um, I wanted to because you mentioned it. I have well, first of all, yeah, like let it be known. I have so many things I want to ask you, but I'll keep them. I'll keep this. I'll keep it concise because it is what it is. It's a one podcast episode, but I loved digging into like research on you and your work because there's so much. But I did, I guess, like because you brought up the cross country and triathlon passion at a younger age, how did your outdoor passions evolve? Also, like Texas, and I don't know enough to even make a statement about this, but like does not all parts of Texas, and maybe like Houston specifically doesn't always strike me as like the most outdoor space. There are a lot of course, like it's a massive state. There's lots of outdoor areas, but outdoor recreation, like how did that come into your life? How did the fly fishing, the climbing, the skiing, like where did that come into play and how did that evolve for you?
Yeah, I think the outdoor passion came from just spending time outside with my family. That was
Mm,
kind of the benchmark for outdoor experiences. And it was like barbecues at the park. It
hmm,
was, um, it was Easter's at this place called, oh God, it was called the Reef. And then they changed it to Lake 288, which because it was off 288, and then it became a private training ground for triathletes. So that probably was why I was like, I'll do this triathlete bullshit. Like, I'll show these. Like, you took our families, and you took all of these other
yeah.
families. Like,
Yeah.
special place to go swimming. It was this like spring-fed lake, like
Wow.
swimming in crystal clear water. You don't really think about that as being available in Houston, and that was one of the places where we spent a lot of time. Like that's where we went there every Easter. I always wanted to go for my birthday. My cousins would always be like, "We want to go to the reef for our birthdays, for the weekend." Um, so when I was looking for schools, just tying it back to that charter school, because I did get into a 4-year college, and that was their goal, and that's why my parents kind of like pushed me to go to that charter school. And I'm a first gen in general, and then like first in my family to graduate college. That's why kind of Portland, Oregon was super intriguing because you see these things in magazines and movies, people mountain biking, people skiing, people fly fishing. I think the fly fishing one really stuck in my brain, probably
Hmm.
because we would fish a lot in Galveston, and it was another form of fishing that I just wanted to try, because that's what you see in movies. You see what's his name, Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
in whatever movie that is, and
Yeah.
one of the most famous movies ever, like whatever movie that is.
Yeah.
And he's doing that. He's fly fishing, and yeah, Portland just seemed like it had all of these. At the time, I didn't know that they were more like of these like traditional forms of outdoor recreation. And it wasn't until I moved to Portland that I saw value in um, the experiences that I had in Houston, because like no one's putting pictures of you grilling, with your
Hmm.
family on magazines. There's no picture of like my uncle throwing me off like a dock. Like I remember that pretty vividly. Like um, these little experiences of like your niece like stopping and like looking at a flower that's like growing out of the cement as a sidewalk. Like I think those are that's more of what my work is, like trying to put value into those experiences so that people see, especially people like my family and people that live in cities, that nature is all around you. You don't need to live in the Tetons, and that's easy for me to say because I'm living, at the base of them. But that's why I'm also here, because trying to break down some of these things that are held up so high that it's like, oh yeah, look, it's not that hard, and you know what, the culture kind of sucks. Like we got to
Yeah.
change it for the better, because my family don't feel like welcomed in this space, and like how can we change this space and value their space so that it's up to them, like
Yeah.
is it really worth it for them to come to visit, these majestic places. Like there's majestic stuff happening all over Houston, because you get stuck in traffic, and if you just look up, like you might see spoonbills like flying over your head because we're on the flyway in Houston. And I remember seeing that, being like, "Whoa!" It's 8 pink birds just flying over me with their little beaks and flying pretty low, and just trying to realize that, like, yeah, it's nature's all around us and it's all valuable.
Absolutely. And it's like what you said, what gets actually something I think it was from The Last Ascent that you and your partner created together, the blog, the post
Hmm.
that Pow just hosted. I think you said something to the effect of like what gets glorified, like what
Hmm.
gets held up on that pedestal, and for like skiing in that context, it's like, the big mountains and the first ascents or descents or last in that case. And I think it's so fascinating to me. Like even when I asked you that question, I was like, oh, Houston doesn't strike me as super outdoorsy. That was like a really white, like westernized sort of version of looking at outdoor recreation in that way. And you're totally right. There's so much, and like not just recreation, like environmentalism and like connection to
Hmm.
nature in these city spaces, or just spaces that, like as you said, like grilling at a park or throwing people into the lake, playing around a dock. Like, it's like
Yeah.
those are beautiful moments of connecting to nature that are not held up kind of on that pedestal, I guess, in these like outdoor communities that we sometimes we occupy, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
um and in that vein, I mean, I think like that was another thing I was really curious about. So you are a documentarian, a filmmaker, photographer. You have gone into this world of storytelling and also sharing. Yeah, because we were saying the word capture is so is quite also
Hmm.
quite like that's not the right language. Like you
Exploitative. Yeah.
you you exploitative, exactly. You share stories and share imagery and visual representation in the work that you do. And so I was curious, like in the same vein of your journey into outdoor recreation and passion, how did that happen? How did that happen for you? How did you come into this space of the profession that you have now?
Oof.
How much time do we have, right?
Loaded question. Well, the year was
Yeah, exactly.
I had moved to
Well,
Thailand. No, there was the economic downturn of 2008 caused me to run away. There's a lot of privilege with that. Uh, yeah.
hey,
Um,
share it. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm curious.
Uh, I think I already forgot. How did I get to kind of the storytelling piece? Um, I think in school, in college specifically, in Portland, I got a lot of exposure to like these traditional forms of recreation. So it was like the first time I went bouldering in a gym. It's the first time I went climbing outside, like for real. It's the first time I went ice climbing. Um, I was supposed to go sturgeon fishing, and then rugby took over, and I got in trouble. So then I stopped going to those things. But our school had these. Like they call them outdoor outings, and they were like all expenses paid. So that's how I learned a lot of these like sports that were always like, oh, I want to try that. Um, and I think as I started to experience them, they felt really still like solitary, still kind of lonely. Because you were climbing with a partner, and like that was kind of the only person you kind of interacted with, or like whoever was teaching you, you like hang out with their friends. And like my school, there's it's pretty white. And so that part of me also like kind of didn't mind, because I was so like, okay, like I want to learn these things so that I can bring more people in to start changing
Yeah.
it from the inside. But it was so like not school was so hard that I was like, I don't have time to like change your bouldering culture or your like ice climbing culture right now. Like, I gotta stay
Fair
in
enough.
school.
Yeah.
As the charter school traumatized me.
Yeah.
So I leaned into like rugby and kayaking were like the things that those were my like PEs in school. And the rugby just had this the community is just like so tight, and it's I'm sure like I've experienced climbing communities and ski communities and ice climbing communities now, but something about like just like grabbing another human and like just that physical touch in like not like in a weird way, but like
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
about the like
yeah,
physical touch, like the mud, the sweat, and then like when you're done, you just like hug and you say like that was a great game, like let's go have
yeah,
some beers or like let's go eat together. It's like we were just at
yeah.
each other's throats, and it was just like you respect the game, you respect each other, and you respect the community that like we're all really excited to just like be outside together as well. It just so
Totally.
happens we're tackling the crap out of each other to the ground, which is I don't know, very different from
Yeah.
taking a whipper. You take the whipper
Right, right.
and your friend kind of feels it, but they're so far away, and it's more of like oh fuck, like are we okay, like is this smart, versus
Yeah,
like getting tackled and being like damn that was a good tackle, is like yeah, get up, like keep playing. Very different. So when I came uh this is really long, I'm so
no,
sorry,
no,
people
I love it,
listening.
please.
And so that's the experience, right, of rugby community, right? It's like, oh, this is a little more uh, reminiscent of like
Hmm.
the family outside kind of feeling, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, these people actually care about me. They're looking out for my well-being. They're fighting somebody because they took a tackle too aggressively or something like that, and just that camaraderie element was there. Fast forward, I graduate, got to look for a job. I do my thesis on rare earth minerals because I can see that that's going to become like a big thing in the future with tech. And I was really interested in, I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. So I was planning to go to law school. And that's why I wrote this thing on rare earth minerals, because it would be interesting to it had a long term kind of like thesis, for like a PhD potentially as well. People were trying to pull me in different ways,
Mm.
and I didn't have any money. That's like
Yep.
no money to go to school. Um, so I just started looking for work in like the environmental field in conservation. I moved to DC to try and work in policy. I was slated to be I think it's called the WABA, like the director of like
Oh, yeah.
programming, something like that.
For
And
the
I
what
was,
is it? Wait, what is it? Washington Bike Association? Is that
yeah, it's like
the?
the Washington Area Bicycling Association. I
There
think
we go.
that's what it
Okay.
was. And
Yeah.
I was like super psyched because, just I'd always, from Houston riding my bike and living in Portland, I was like, oh, it's so safe. And DC was kind of like at the cusp of like, oh, we want to do it, but we don't know. And it was like a really exciting time. I get the job offer. It's like, cool. Like, this is not directly related to like these like bigger themes of like environmental protection or environmental law, but like this is how people start. They start to care about the air that they breathe in. They start to realize that their urban design is not designed with like the most resilient, environmental, sustainable way of thinking. So it's like it's connected somehow, or I'll
Yeah.
make it connect later,
Yeah. I'll make it
or
happen.
I'll get the job and then I'll work in policy by working for some senator. Who knows? And I go home for Christmas, and there's
To
this job.
Houston.
Yeah, back to Houston.
Yeah.
I think I'm like 20, I don't know, mid 20s. I had just come back from living in Thailand too, because there was no money. And my partner at the time was like, we should go teach English. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I actually had to borrow money from my then girlfriend's dad to for the flight to be able
To
to like
go to
to
the, oh
go
man.
because we had applied and we got it. I was like, oh yeah, let's just apply. Like, no way, they're gonna take us. I don't got no money. And- but we got in. Whatever. I live over there. It's crazy hot. Um, so when I was in DC, I went home for Christmas and I saw this job opening for the Greens Bayou Coalition, and there's like 22 bayous in Houston. There's a few major ones, and the Greens Bayou is one of them. And it's actually one that's it's in my neighborhood. And the thing about Houston is that the weather there it's hot, hotter, and hurricane. And so these
Those are the
bayous,
options.
those are the options. So during hurricane season or a tropical storm, these bayous flood a lot, and they overflow and they flood a lot of homes. And luckily, we're just far enough away from the bayou. It's called Howells Bayou that floods in our neighborhood, but it's connected to Greens Bayou. If you're listening, grab a map, just pull it up. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
And so this org was doing work with flood mitigation in my
Okay.
neighborhood,
Wow.
in my community. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And then I looked at their website, and like their whole like work zone was all of Greens Bayou, which starts in the northwest part of Houston, cuts across to the northeast, and then it goes south and then connects to the largest bayou, which is Buffalo Bayou. And they do these flood mitigation projects, right? But they also couple them as parks because they're not always flooded. And flood
Yeah.
mitigation banks are just big holes in the ground. But so this org was building trails at the bottom of these like big holes,
Hmm.
essentially. And they were being used as parks when they weren't flooded, so that the flood wouldn't go to these homes. Because if there wasn't that sort of like gigantic hole in the ground, all that water would go to these homes. And I was like, this is really cool. It's saving these people's homes, people
Yeah.
that, the neighborhoods that I'm from. Like, and there was an opening, and I was like, I'm just going to apply. And while I'm in Houston for Christmas, I get a call that's like, we want to interview you. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. This is kind of cool. Like, I'm here. Like, I'll do it. And so I interview, I fly back to DC, I get an offer, and then I have to like convince my then partner, like, we need to move to Houston because this job is way more meaningful and a little more direct with some of
Yeah.
the environmental work that I want to do. Like, this is like direct impact, immediate impact for some of this work, and it couples recreation. And there's like a long-term vision to like connect the entirety of the Greens Bayou through bikeways and pathways for the communities, and potentially increasing the property value of the homes
Hmm.
along the bayou, because Greens Bayou has a lot of like, it's in the poorer parts of Houston. So it was going to be good for these homeowners that like their homes have been stagnant in value, and the city kind of just forgot them, and like they weren't pouring money into this bayou, Greens Bayou, but they were pouring money into Buffalo Bayou, which, if anyone has seen maybe a photo of Houston, and like there's like a water at the foreground or the background, that's probably Buffalo Bayou.
Hmm.
Um, and that came about from, oh god, was the High Line in New York, like
Yep.
repurposing and
Mm-hmm.
public private partnerships. So that's how Buffalo Bayou had this
Interesting.
like revitalizing, because they took that model of like, okay, let's get some private dollars and donors, coupled with Parks and Rec, coupled with the city,
Mm-hmm.
to start building these trails out. And like, you build it and they'll come. And if you go any point of the day, Buffalo Bayou is full of people like recreating,
Wow.
walking, running, doing
Huh.
their. Sorry, there's a dog. She might keep.
Good. No, it's fine. I've done full episodes with a dog the entire time, like in
Uh,
the background barking. So, um,
so that's
and
like
so
all.
I'm guessing that that bayou specifically, it sounds like the difference between those two was that there was one that was like invested in and more create like access created that way, but also as you said, like with Greens Bayou, it was like there are poor communities living on this. They flood because there's
Yeah,
no mitigation factors
yeah,
keeping the flooding at bay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
interesting.
And
Yeah,
they put in flood mitigation on Buffalo Bayou too, because that it parallels this kind of like major highway, which is really a parkway, is called Allen's Parkway, and so that floods a bunch. So it came from also like, okay, this is a problem. This bayou that's right next door keeps flooding over, and people can't get to downtown Houston to get to their jobs. So like, what the hell do we do?
yeah,
And that's where I think people started like, okay, let's build these gigantic holes in the ground, like to take the water in, so it doesn't
yeah.
flood out
Makes
of its
sense.
banks. Pretty simple. Pretty. I think it just doubles up. It just has so many benefits. Um, and it's real and it's fast and it's impactful. You know, people are
Mm-hmm.
out there using these spaces. A lot of people, when we built some things on Greens Bayou, and I would go out to like just chat with people. I was like, "Do you know that this is like a flood mitigation ban?" They're like, "What the hell is that? Isn't it just like
Oh,
a park?"
interesting.
He's like, "No, that's why like we're kind of lower on the ground and like, your car is kind of higher." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit! Like
Oh,
for real?" It's kind of like that, and that was always really cool, for people to like. You're already doing climate change, right?
yeah.
And
That's it.
like people don't really, you, you don't need to be like at the forefront of climate policy to be involved in like climate change. Like you being here enjoying this pathway in this like ditch, technically, big hole in the ground, like you are climate change solutioning, if
Yeah.
we can say
Yeah.
those words.
Yes. Exactly. You are in a climate change adaptation
Hmm.
solution right
Yeah,
now yourself.
yeah,
Interesting.
much better way to say
Yeah.
it.
No, 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 no. I like solutioning better. We should use that. Um.
So that
Okay.
was
Wait. Wait. So did you take the job? Wait. So did? Oh my
oh
gosh.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
on the edge of my seat.
I
Okay.
know,
Okay.
I took the job because I'm talking about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I took the job.
Yeah.
Me and my partner moved to Houston, and I just had a niece that was born. God, she's like 8 now, so that was like 8 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Good
And
marker.
then really cool work. My boss was really cool, hands off, collaborative. Like she knew I wanted to do like photography and like filmmaking, so she would like throw me all these things like, well, then go take these like photos at this spot, go take these photos at this spot, and take Grady out with your boat. And Grady had boats and he was a board member, and they did like board member monitoring. So we got to like ride on like kayak the bayou, and
Oh, cool.
you would just see these places that were, you did not feel like you were in the fourth largest city in the US. You were just
Yeah.
kind of like, whoa, shit.
Wow.
It was like deep, deep Florida, or like, you couldn't hear the highway. There was a bald eagle's nest, like on one of the sections, and I remember like water moccasins trying to get into my boat. Like I wouldn't recommend this part where the water moccasins were, but I was like, "Hey, Grady, like, what's coming at me?" And he's like, "Move your boat." I was like,
He's like,
"Oh,
please move. Please
yeah."
move.
But that kind of started this like that like revaluing Houston as like a recreational space, like as an adult coming back. Um, but but I remembered why I moved away from Houston. It was just too hot. I was like, it's too hot.
Hot, hotter, and hurricane.
Yeah,
Those
hot,
were the
hotter, and
three, right?
hurricane.
Okay.
And I
I'm
was
gonna
like,
remember that.
after 2 years, and my boss had gotten a bigger job because she was so good at her job, and
Nice.
there was new people, and people were leaving, and like the org was kind of, I don't know. I wanted to stay obviously because it was still um, my neighborhood. The people that were benefiting from our projects were people that look like me, our communities. But yeah, it was really hot, and my best friend was living um, in Jackson Hole at the time, and we were talking about, I want to move somewhere because it's really hot here, but I want to keep the this environmental profession going. Um, and yeah, my partner at the time wanted us to move to Chile to teach English. So that's why I bring up Thailand before, because I was like,
Yeah.
I kind of already did that.
Yeah. You're like, I did that
I
already.
have
And
to, not like in a rude way, but like in a,
yeah.
we're out of school now, and like
Yeah.
now the student loans, like
Yeah. Uh-huh.
you know, the leeway is
That's real.
gone. There's a car payment now. Like there's a lot more things that I can't get $400 a month to pay these things. So I ended up moving to Jackson. The partner moved down to Chile. Um, and I got a job here. It, that what I got a job here to work with a land trust, and they were trying to build out sort of their that same model of public-private partnerships to develop public-private spaces for recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, like the High Line, similarly to Greens and Buffalo Bayou. Um, so that's how I kind of ended up in Jackson Hole. And throughout that whole time, the Portland, Thailand, DC, Houston with Greens, and I was trying to develop this like photo sort of like
Hmm.
side hustle. My school didn't allow double majors, but I wanted to be like a photojournalist, specifically a war journalist. I think
Hmm.
um, I can't. Yeah, I wanted to make change. It was either going to be through law or through like art, and the school wouldn't let me like combine the two. It was like you have to choose one, but I didn't want to choose one. So
Fair enough.
so it was always like, I had all of my art classes in school were like photo or design based, and once I was traveling in Thailand, trying to develop that like travel esque vibe, whatever Lonely Planet was. I was like trying to be like Lonely Planet, and um, because once I realized like, oh, I can travel without being a war journalist, like that's cool.
That's a big light bulb moment. And it's
Yeah,
true. You
yeah,
can. Yeah.
yeah. Not to not that I stepped away from like that policy aspect, because the point of being the war photojournalist was to change policy, but in speaking with some photojournalists is like, oh man, like you're in for a grind. Like it was just like really disheartening
Hmm.
stuff. Not just what they were seeing, but like, yeah, like my photos, like Reuters pays for them, but like they don't, it's just a click now, and it's
Yeah.
a rough, bleak outlook on life that I was like, I don't want to feel like how you feel, sir.
Yeah. That's real.
Yeah. So still trying to develop that storytelling using visual methods through these orgs, through these environmental orgs that I was involved in. So with in Houston, it was like we made like a photo contest, and we made like a film about the org, which I like got to like sort of produce, executive produce. Now that I know what those words are, I didn't I just
You're
hired the
like, that's
guy.
what I was doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
exactly.
was doing, producing
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
Um, if you watch it now, I'm sure they've made a new one now, but I had to like cut myself out of it because I knew that I was gonna quit, and I didn't want like the org to look bad. If like, why, like, where's that guy? Like, where's the
Yeah. Yeah. Where'd he
programs
go?
director? Yeah, like
Yeah.
where did the programs director go? That's in the movie.
Yeah.
Um, so trying to develop these two things. this like photo film career with this like environmental um career to like maybe it's like because I was always like maybe I'll go to law school, like maybe it'll work, like maybe I'll figure it out. Um because so many people from my school are like, it's never too late. Like, I got my PhD when I was like 45, or like, I went back to law school at 40, whatever. It's like, oh, okay, I got time. I got to figure out how to make 80K, to
Yeah.
pay for
Yeah.
80K a year in law school.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly, it's so interesting when people are like, you can go back at any time. And you're like, are we saying like everyone, or is it just you?
Yeah.
Like, what are we
Yeah.
talking about here? Like, what position in life, or sort of like privileged position to be able to go back? So, um, I really appreciate that whole story. Like, I think, because I think there's a lot of people, myself included, listening who are maybe trying to like do something on the side and start, make that kind of like the career. And I think it was again really cool to be in that space at POW to realize that so many folks are making it, either it's their full time thing or they're still sort of like it's a side hustle, but they're able to like make a way, a path, a career in the space of storytelling, which is hard. It's not an easy thing. And I I mean, yeah, we I wanna ask you too about this very in the moment, I was gonna say recent, but it's like today, um, you are wrapping a film.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. I wanted
That's
to
right.
ask you about kind of the like, well, I wanted to ask like sort of the stories that you've been involved in. So you mentioned that you had like, now you've made a few films, you have beautiful photography in the world, you are focusing on environmental and climate storytelling and representation and visual
Mhm.
representation and changing the narrative around, like, I love what you said about it's not just welcoming more folks that look like you or other folks of color in the space or folks that don't look like that kind of very homogenous white outdoor space.
Mhm.
It's welcoming people in, but it's also placing value and increasing the beauty of the spaces that we don't like hold up on a pedestal,
Yeah.
as you said. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, and we didn't really talk too much about the film that you're making right now and wrapping on today, but I was just curious your process of kind of bringing these to life, knowing that like environmental storytelling and representation and equity and inclusion storytelling are challenging topics.
Mhm.
How does that process go for you? Like, what is that like for you?
It starts with people. I think that was like the big, from the DC job to the Houston job to the Jackson Hole job, which by the way I left to pursue filmmaking and photography and like pro skiing like full time. So this is
Wow.
like year 3 of like sort of making it work as of now.
Yeah. Good for
Uh,
you. Wow.
as I look at my bank account, it's like, oh, I gotta bring in more money. um, um, but it starts with people because you can take something so like a large problem, issue, policy, whatever, like climate change, and like the magnitude is just so high that you can lose people so fast. You lose people at in the global south, and it's like, oh, I'm out, like, or the global, whatever it is, like. But if you tie in a person or something that's a little more relatable, like, I don't know how much green gases, the Department of Defense has every year, but I know that feeling of being outside with like my family, right? Just to put it
Yeah.
simply, and we can't have those experiences if it's too hot outside, or if the weather is too extreme, or if a hurricane is destroying our home, or if there's a fire. Like, those are the kind of, then the like climate change sort of, the magnitude comes down, and you're grounded, so you can start zooming out to see the bigger sort of effects, if you will. So for some of these like climate pieces that you were mentioning, of my work, it's really about the people that are in it, why it matters to them, and why it should matter to you. Like I know somebody that they wrote a book about glaciers, and so sort of they gave the glacier kind of like a persona because
Mm.
she in her PhD she was like, we people know that glaciers are dying, but they don't know how to relate to like a glacier. So in my book, it's a person, and you start to realize that this person is deteriorating. Like you
Oh,
care when somebody's like deteriorating, and you see them like being unable to walk, or like they start losing hair. Like who knows? Like you start to feel that. Like I feel that with my family now. Like my parents are like getting older, and just seeing that sort of like that's a natural process, people getting older, but some of this like environmental degradation, like it's not natural. It is natural in the sense that humans like love to control things, and like we affect things without knowing, like that's a natural part, but everything is so layered, and trying to find the layers that I think will relate to people is kind of how I drive some of my work. And what do the characters want to talk about? Like, why, like, what do they want out of this experience too? Not just looking at, okay, we need to package this thing so that, whatever org can sell it. It's like, no, like the
hmm.
whole process should be a learning, enjoyable experience for you as well. Like, as we're shooting, as we're planning in post, um, yeah, so people.
I love that. I think the glacier story is wild. Like I felt it when you said that. I was like, "Oh, yeah." Like it's one thing to see something, even seeing it visually, and all about, I don't need to tell you about visual representation or like the power of a visual, right? But
Hmm.
then when you like feel it, like it's a family member almost,
Hmm.
that's a total shift. And that's what a powerful way to change our relationship. Like it's kind of like what we talked about. Now I can't even remember if we were recording or not, but like the personhood
Hmm.
of like the mountain, the river, the forest in New Zealand we were talking about, like that brings that exact thing up. Like it's a person. Maybe the glacier is, it has like is a character, is a persona. And yeah, wow, that's really powerful. I want to like link to that. I'll get that
That
from you or
book,
something. Yeah, I do
sure,
want
a
to
long
like
time ago.
share
I
that with
kind of
people.
forgot
It's okay. We'll find it. It's okay.
the name.
Um, thank you for sharing that though. Okay, wait. So I have two more questions for you, and then we're gonna close because you have a movie to wrap, you have a film to release into the world, and I
Yes.
don't want to take too much more of your time. Okay. Um, I wanted to ask about the Mount.
Exporting. He's saying he's
As
exporting.
exporting.
He's exporting.
Yes. Yes. Okay, great. Look at that. All you need, here's the thing, Junior. All I needed to do was distract you from the process of what was going on the final edit. And here we
Yeah,
are. You're going to get an
yeah.
exported film after we're done. It's great.
As soon as we're done.
As soon as we're done. Um, well, actually, can you talk a little bit more about the film that you're going to be releasing to the world soon, that
Yeah,
you're working on right now?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This film, it's called Across Together: The Return Expedition, and it's about young people in New Mexico that have either lost their connection with their sort of like cultural heritage as well as with like the land. So these young people learn mountaineering skills in New Mexico to be able to climb Pico de Orizaba, Citlaltépetl in Mexico, which is the tallest stratovolcano in North America. Um, so you get to see sort of just people's evolutions through like something as big as trying to climb like almost 19,000 feet. Like, I think there's a lot of moments of like, oh, like I remember my first time like doing that, or it's just like it just touches on that like nostalgia that we were talking. I can't remember if we were recording either. That like nostalgia piece
Yeah.
of like we're trying to like remember this moment that we felt, and I hope that people feel that in seeing these young people's journey, as they train to sort of climb this mountain. I don't want to give
Wow.
anything away, but
I know. That's
and
that's a
it's
great. We'll leave it there.
yeah,
That's a
yeah. But
great.
there's a climate piece, obviously because the glacier on Pico Orizaba, the Hamapa Glacier is slated to disappear. Let's see. They told me 2 years ago that in 2 years it would disappear. This past year, they said like within 4 years, it's gonna be gone. So it's also sort of like not an official requiem, but like there is some piece of
Yeah.
that. Like, can we document pieces of this glacier? Um, yeah,
And then the human element, to your point, not necessarily the humanization or characterization of like a land mass a formation. It's also like bringing people to the environment, right?
hmm
Like that's something we talk about on Trailhead a lot, is like this idea, the sort of funny, again, Western white characterization of like pristine lands and like no untouched lands. And you're like, that's not, no, that's like completely not the point. Like, yes, climate change is human caused. And there are ways that we can continue to be human, like be
hmm
ourselves and in community and enjoying nature without destroying it the way that we have been. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm so excited to see that film.
I'm excited to show it to you and to see what your thoughts. Well, we can watch it after this.
We'll watch it together. Oh yeah, you're getting the expert
I'm
fresh
getting the
after.
export right now. Thank you,
Uh,
Sergio. Thank you, Samia. Project.
yeah, exactly. A shout out, a
Shout
podcast
out
shout
to
out. This is
thank you,
great.
Charlie, Nico, Zach, all the post production people that hate
Getting
me
the
right now. Like,
getting the award speech ready. I love it. I love it. That's all I want to do is provide a platform for practicing award speeches. Here we go. Um, Last question for you is kind of a fun one, just because I like to end on. Well, oh, I lied. I have two more questions. I'm so sorry. Okay, but the
yeah,
last,
yeah,
like the really quick little one is, are you like you are a coffee lover? Clearly, like I sat down at the table at POW, and I think like we didn't even like exchange names, kind of to this point of introductions. We were literally like, oh, what coffee are you drinking? Which one did
yeah.
you get? Oh, is it good? Like, do you want? Should I get another one? And it was just instantly like this bond. Tell me, the reason I'm bringing this up is you said something about like in Jackson, some of the coffee is good. We don't have to go too much into that. But then there's also, do you like, does your partner Vanessa like bring coffee from Colombia? Like there was something where you guys were like, I could tell you were coffee nerds right away. And I was like, I love this.
I think growing up, I like to say I matured in Portland. Like Portland
Growing up in, yeah, okay,
is
fair.
like, that's why I'm a beer snob. That's why these are
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa's words. That's why I'm a beer snob. That's why I'm a coffee snob. That's why I'm kind of a food snob from Houston. Like, yeah,
Fair.
Jackson has some strides to go, and that's okay. There's room
Mm-hmm.
for growth.
That's okay. Room for
Can
growth.
grow.
Yep,
We can grow,
definitely.
Addie. I can
We can
grow.
all go. Both of us can grow. We'll
We
grow
can grow.
together. We'll
Yeah.
grow right here, right now. Yep.
And
Yep.
I went on a trip with my best friends back in the day to Bogota, actually. So I hadn't even met Vanessa yet. I had just moved to Jackson, and because the coffee wasn't hidden for me, and we went to this coffee shop after we had seen actually this like Paramo ecosystem, which it's endemic to Colombia and other countries in South America. They have these plants called frailejones. They take in moisture from the air, and that's how a lot of major cities have clean drinking water. So part of tying that into some of my work, Soñadora, one of the films, the first film that Vanessa and I actually worked on, she's running in this Paramo ecosystem in Colombia. And back then I wanted to do like a whole like grant proposal, because there's like Nat Geo stuff, and a lot of that stuff becomes overwhelming like really fast. I remember in Thailand, I was trying to do like another Nat Geo grant about mining, and mining in Southeast Asia, because rare earth stuff was coming there too. They were just doing speculative stuff, but if they found something, like it was going to be detrimental. There's already palm oil. It just adds to the problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, back to the coffee. So we go to this coffee shop, and it's called Colo Coffee, and like obviously my best friends are from Port. They're not from Portland, but I met them in college, so they're like also
Mm.
coffee snobs. And we drink it, and we're like, whoa, like this is so good. Like, where do you get your coffee? Like, what's the deal here? Because like we had been to other coffee shops in Bogota, and they just weren't. This one was just like so different. Stuff was delicate.
Yeah.
There was like notes of orange peel, like not the whole orange, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
even know how you do that. Um, so I took
That
their
is
number.
delicate.
Yeah, so like I grabbed their card, and like we
Nice.
just kept going back there. That be just became
Wow.
like the other ones suck. Like let's just keep going to this one. So then when we came back to the States, I was living here and I was going to these coffee shops, and I was like, man, I just keep thinking about the Colo coffee. So I just like DM them, and I'm like, yo, how much? Because I brought some bags, right? And then I ran out because I gave
Yeah.
some
Oh, the
away, and then I was
worst.
like, shit, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have given away because now I'm out, and it was so good.
That was really generous of you, but also I feel you when you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
And so I hit them up, and I was like, so like, how much do I have to order for you to FedEx me some beans? And they're like, oh, you have to order like, I don't know, like 15 bags. And I was like, done. Like I was still working at that land trust, so I still had like money coming in
Right.
regularly.
Yeah, you have
I'm
some
gonna go
money
through
to
these bags.
yeah.
Like I'm buying this. Like you
Yeah.
are FedExing
Well,
me
the thing
this.
is, like, you'll drink it. Like, it's like something
Yeah,
that you start the day with every day. Like, that's how I'm like, I mean, if I'm gonna spend money on something, a bag of coffee beans, that's nice, like that I know I'm gonna enjoy. So
yeah,
this is
100%.
next level though. I love it.
Yeah. And then a few years ago, we did a piece on Patagonia with Patagonia,
Yeah.
specifically about coffee and like
Oh,
the
cool.
coffee region and how climate change was
Yeah.
um, basically destroying these plants and how do they make like more um, resilient plants because of the hotter temperature. This like beetle that kills the plants
Mm-hmm.
was becoming more proactive and was
Oh,
coming
interesting.
sooner and was spreading faster. So that was kind of also like a full circle moment of, oh wow, like working on this like climate change coffee piece in Colombia with Patagonia, like this is pretty cool. And it was also mountain biking as well.
Nice. There's always like I feel like a nice outdoor recreation tie that they make. They
Exactly.
similarly, like it's all in that same space. Okay, last question for you. Here we go. Promise. I ask everyone this. That's why I falsely jumped to assuming the last one was the last question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is your favorite climate solution that is not your own? And that last piece kind of goes with like if I'm interviewing somebody with a seaweed farm, for instance, it's like, okay, maybe don't use that as your model. Like
Dang.
what else is out there that it's exciting you
Mhm.
besides film and documentation of climate storytelling?
I think, oof, so many. There's so many like solutions that haven't gone to scale that are super interesting. Um, I mean, just the seaweed one, the kelp one is like coming to
Yeah.
mind because they triggered it. My friend who's a scientist, Ellen Bradley, she introduced me to this like kelp hot sauce that's like made
Oh,
by like some of her
cool.
friends. So they like are, trying to secrete like the carbon emissions through development of this kelp, and you get to eat it with the hot sauce is pretty good. Like I'm not even just
That's
saying they don't. I
so
wish they would
cool.
sponsor. They don't even sponsor me. I was like, it's when I go to Ellen's house, like I finish that thing. She gets a little upset, but whatever. Like it's good. What do you want from
It's a
me?
price to pay. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the price you pay, and
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting way to go about it
Yeah.
because there's economic incentive um, on both ends, right? There's people that, okay, like the people that made that business, they care about the environment, they're trying to do something, but they also need to make a living. And they're
Totally.
making this hot sauce. And people
Yeah.
buying the hot sauce on the other end get to eat this delicious hot sauce, and they get to help this crew that's growing kelp that helps, bring carbons to what is the word? I'm losing it right now.
So, to bring draw down sequestration, like
Yeah,
carbon, like sequester carbon. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, and it sequesters like way more. This is so funny. Like, it's funny that I brought this up because like people that have listened to other episodes will be like, "Oh, there goes Addie talking about seaweed again." Because I like am also obsessed with like kelp farming, and I kind of want to be a kelp farmer someday. And but I think there's something around. I need to find the statistics on this, but it's like there's extra levels of sequestration and like rates of like carbon drawdown is especially high with kelp. It's very cool. That's cool about the hot sauce. I didn't know
yeah.
that.
It's called bullwhip.
Nice. Okay. Sweet. I'm gonna go find it now. The thing that oh cool. Yeah. Boa from Barnacle Food. That's
Yeah,
so cool.
I like the Serrano.
Yeah.
The Serrano one is the good one.
Okay. Noted. I'm gonna go find it. I think what you said about like that economic incentive too, kind of finding like end markets for something like kelp, like
Hmm.
as a it's like if it's on, I mean, it's maybe sounds transactional, but like if it's not feasible from a business perspective, a lot of these climate solutions like just don't get off the ground. As you said, a lot of them aren't scaled because maybe there's not the like funding or the incentive there for communities to adopt it. So um
Yeah, and I think that's one of
yeah,
the bigger sort of not drawbacks, but maybe we don't see that as like being scalable. People think, sure, I'm one of those. Like we just like you and I just promoted capitalism. And, it's like,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
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 like
yeah,
buy the
buy
thing.
the yeah,
And it's like, well, we need a solution within 5 to 10 years. To destroy and rebuild a capitalistic system is going to take like, way longer than that. So, like, what solutions?
yeah,
And there's not just going to be one. I think that's the other thing. Like, we need to have multi pronged solutions. If you look at capitalism, it works at different levels and different spheres all over the world. Like, that's the type of solutions that we need. We need to sort of like replicate that. That there's like we're calling them solutions, right? So like solutions like everywhere at every level.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Junior, thank you so
Thank you,
much
Addie. I hope
for
that was
all of this.
enjoyable.
No, no, this was, I had so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I know yeah, for context that we didn't really give folks, like, you're literally like waiting on a final export of this film that is then going to go live to the world soon and
Yeah,
be submitted to various festivals, which I say because I'm really excited to hopefully see it in one of these spaces or somehow like be able to view it soon because I'm really excited for it. Thank you. Well, congrats on that first, and also thank you for the work that you do. And I'm so glad the POW gathering brought us together, and it's great to hang out more.
same. Thanks so much, Addie. This was really fun.